Hi, this is Daoni from Archdruid. I will be commentating our last kill of 25-man heroic Garrosh before the item level upgrades. The video and this accompanying commentary is specific to Destruction Warlocks. This was not a perfect kill, but a good one to learn from for the alt-rate. I'm going to go over a few things before unpausing the video to do a play-by-play. The two main roles of Warlocks for this fight is first to spawn the desecrated weapons in the right places, which means that we'll be running around a lot, and second, to soak the second Malice in Phase 4 and spawn the Iron Star. You can play standard Destro talents here. I prefer Sacrificial Pact because the shorter cooldown allows me to use it for every other empowered whirling. And for Grimoire of Sacrifice, it's better to use Fell Hunter to help interrupt for phases 1 through 3. It's optional to glyph Havoc. I normally play with it glyphed, but not in the clip here. I want to talk a little about the opener because it goes by way too quickly. The point of AoEing the Warbringers is for Embers, and this is done by keeping up Ring of Fire and spreading Immolate through Fire and Brimstone. You want to avoid Ember capping by casting Chaos Bolts and Shadow Burns when you're at high Embers. Later on, you're going to do extra Ember generation by multi-dotting the weapons and cleaving them with Havoc. I use Dark Soul at the start of the pull, but I hold on to Gloves and Berserking until I'm casting the first Chaos Bolt under 4-piece. I also save one Ember to be able to turn on Fire and Brimstone immediately for the first set of Warbringers, and I also save one charge of Conflag for the same reason, for faster Incinerates. Right before the first set of Warbringers die, it's important to turn off Fire and Brimstone to try to Shadow Burn snipe them, rather than waste an Ember cleaving on fewer than 4 targets. The problem with this is that you may not be able to get it off because they can die so quickly from everyone else still spamming AoE. When the second set is on low health, you want to mouse over and Shadow Burn a couple of them right before the Iron Star hits. This way you can empty Embers by spamming Shadow Burn on Garrosh and then get them refilled once the Iron Star hits and those Warbringers die. With unglyphed Havoc, you can Havoc on the boss and then Shadow Burn the ads during that part, but I prefer not to do that and instead save Havoc for the first transition. In terms of CDs, you can use Doomguard on the opener, and then later again during Phase 4 you'll be able to use it again because it's a very long fight. We used to have to save Doomguard for Phase 3, but not anymore. I prefer to use my first Havoc on the first Wolf Rider. During the first transitions ads, I don't use my Dark Soul. Instead, I save 2 Embers going into that phase, and I hold on to a Havoc. I delay my second Dark Soul to use on the boss during that first transition phase. All other times, you can just use CDs as they come up. So now I'm going to unpause the video in 5 seconds to do a play-by-play. I'm pausing in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, unpause.
Yeah.
So at the start of the fight, you want to cast a gateway towards the engineers for the rogues, and then I'm placing a teleport here closer towards the stack point. It's also possible to place a teleport right by the throne where Garrosh is, so that you can move out immediately for the first desecrated weapon.
Well, why don't I have symbiosis anymore?
So now we're going to do the pull. On the pull, I tend to precast 2 Rings of Fire. And now I'm going to Doomguard, cast Dark Soul, pretty standard. Okay, now that the Warbringers are out, now I'm popping the rest of my CDs. Right, putting up Ring of Fire, turning on Fire and Brimstone, cleaving with Fire and Brimstone. I'm Ember Cat, so I'm casting the first Chaos Bolt, and then I'm going to get a Shadow Burn snipe off to go back up to 4 Embers.
Gonna be taunting here.
So now, because Trinket's still after casting 1 more Chaos Bolt, okay. Now the first set of ads is over, and it's time for the Wolf Rider. Rob's yelling at me because he thinks I tagged the Wolf Rider with Ring of Fire. At this point, I should be running out, but I'm not. I should already be running out, but instead I'm arguing with him about whether I tagged it or not. But thankfully, if you see Maglio running out there, and the weapon is spawned in the right place. Okay, so now is the second set of ads. Ring of Fire, Fire and Brimstone again, Immolate Spread. And here, like just like before, when you're Ember Cap, you still need to cast Chaos Bolt. And now the boss is sub 20%, can switch to Shadowburn spam. So here I'm keeping Embers high by generating Embers, and then I'm still casting Shadowburns. So normally this is where you're supposed to mouse over Shadowburn to Warbringers as the Iron Star is going by. But here, we had really good boss damage, and the Warbringers were still kept very high, which is good. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, right? They're doing more single target than AoE. Okay, so yeah, here I'm just shadow burning the last two Warbringers, and then I have to refresh shadow burn on one of them because the debuff expiring. But now we're about to get transported, so don't, when he's pulling you, don't get your Chaos Bolt interrupted. I'm going into the phase with Fire and Brimstone turned on. First cast the Ring of Fire, then spread Fire and Brimstone, then cast Shadow Fury, then cast Havoc, and then Cleave. Okay, so what you saw just now is my group. We've used 2 Shadow Furies and an AoE interrupt, but it was still very useful for me to single target interrupt that last guy. Like, it was still important because it didn't die quickly enough. Here we're screwed over because none of us were able to pick up the bubble. So the first reaction should be to pop, ward to absorb damage, and then also pop sacrificial pack here. I should be holding on to at least 1 Ember just in case I'm afraid that I'm gonna die, so I can Ember tap. Instead, I pop. This is where I normally pop Dark Soul and just nuke the boss. It's very important during this phase is that you watch the Annihilate animation. Once he's mid-animation, that's when you can Chaos Bolt. You don't want to, queue up a Chaos Bolt and then having to interrupt yourself because of having to move. Yeah, that part's very good to watch the animation. So here you see me placing Havoc on the old weapon. Here goes the first Mind Control. You always want to pre-cast Ring of Fire on the Mind Control, because just in case you're the one who's you're the MC target, you will actually get full Embers because your Ring of Fire is hitting the entire raid. So I remember to do that and gave me full Embers. Kudos to me. Okay, so this is pretty normal, right? Havoc on the weapon, keeping up dots on both. You could definitely refresh Immolate a little bit sooner, before you expect having to move. I just turn around for a split second to put up a teleport, and I'm going to use that later to run into the corner very quickly. Okay, so far so good. So this is 2-weapon situation. In a situation like this, you don't want to cast Shadow Burn on the same weapon multiple times. And the reason you don't is you don't want to finish off too quickly for the other Warlocks to also get their Shadow Burn in, right? You want to cooperate so that everybody gets 1 Shadow Burn in, or Shadow or Death in, so that they get an orb or they get an Ember. And then you double or triple tapping Shadow Burn on that weapon really does more harm to the raid than good. But yeah, in general, try to only Shadow Burn each weapon once. Okay, this is pretty normal. Yeah, here it's important to, keep up dots on that desecrated weapon, and then also put up dots on the old weapon. So I do that here. I put up the Immolate and I Shadow Burn once, then I go back to the boss, and I'm about to get some Embers back, exactly, because, the other Warlocks have also Shadow Burned it. If you were to have Havoc glyphed here, you will be able to use 1 last Havoc before getting pulled to the second transition. Here on that last desecrated weapon, I'm trying too hard to finish it off. I'm going to put up Immolate, and then I'm going to Shadow Burn it twice. It's actually a mistake here. You see me Shadow Burn it even as I'm flying through the air, because it's a mistake because I'm not able to finish it off. Which means that I was supposed to go into this phase with fewer than 10 Ember bits, which would have really screwed me for the AoE. But thankfully my Immolates ticked and gave me, my 10th Ember. Unfortunately, I was really, really slow, right, in running to the top of the stairs. You could actually go right next to the tanks and not worry about aggro. They're really good about picking up the mobs, so don't delay when you're doing that run up top. And obviously, right you could prepare yourself for AoE by turning on Fire and Brimstone ahead of time.
Hellstone, use it personal.
I got Iron Broken Holy.
Okay, so this part's still
Call if you need a CD.
same as normal. Don't be a retard, don't die to Annihilate. I'm pulling Embers right here for my Trinket ICD. Okay. So you saw that as I was falling, I was able to teleport and get to the corner sooner. You could Rocket Boots there, but I had to use Rocket Boots during the transition. Here, I'm turning on Fire and Brimstone. I'm about to do it, but I have Burning Rush turned on to help run in and out faster. And then I'm turning on Fire and Brimstone. I'm actually AoEing the mind control ads here, and not just, very light taps with Ring of Fire. Because here, at this point, it becomes really important to break people out. Okay, so when running from the Empower Whirling Corruption, you need to have Burning Rush turned back off, because there's no point of you running faster than the rest of your raid.
Sorry, that's my club.
Okay, notice how move back out again to try to spawn the second weapon.
Found them out. Forgot Star.
Okay. Yeah, this happens sometimes when you have extra minions that aggroed onto, the tank. Okay, once again, here, it's important to Fire and Brimstone out the mind control targets, right? They're being broken out very, very slowly, as you can see just now.
Okay, this is AMZ and Hula String.
Okay. So we're expecting one more Whirling Corruption here. And typically this is the one where we AoE grip and stun. I actually wasted my stun a little while earlier because I forgot that I could not stun the empowered MCs. Okay, but somebody else got the stun off, so we're good.
Stats are out.
Okay, so here, I don't know if you noticed, but the last few weapons that were placed, when I cloned Havoc on them, I did not cast Chaos Bolt because it's really pointless to Chaos Bolt these side weapons. Instead, I just casted Incinerate as I was moving for more Embers. Once again, MC, precast Ring of Fire, precast the Fire and Brimstone, and precast the Incinerate here. One thing that you could do for all MCs is that as soon as you see it's not you, you could already be moving out to the next weapon placement, right? So you saw me do that, but I was a little bit slow. I could have been much faster. Okay, so here I'm using Hellstone, Ward, and Sacrificial Pact again. So yeah, Sacrificial Pact is used every other Empowered Whirling. Get back in.
Got any interrupts?
Yep. Fire and Brimstone, break out the MCs. Okay, so the push to phase 4 is going to happen soon. So up until this point, I've been using Fellhunter Sacrifice for the extra interrupt, and you saw how earlier it was actually very handy. For phase 4, in order to soak the second Malice, or to more safely soak the second Malice, it's better to switch to Voidwalker. So I'm going to hard cast Voidwalker here. I'm going to sack it, so that later on, I'm going to pop the Voidwalker last stand and then use Sacrificial Pact for this huge shield. I'll make sure I don't die. Also, right before I got pulled up, I Shadow Fury'd the as Rob was kiting, and I put 2 sets of Ring of Fire on them, so that I'm going into this phase 4 right now with full Embers. Okay, so here it's important to get to the stack spot quickly for the Malice. And then once the Malice pops, it's going to be centered around that person, and that person is going to stand still. And then everybody else should be standing at the edge of the Malice circle, and they should just be moving slightly in and out, in and out, in and out. Right? If you get the debuff, then you need to move out of the circle before it ticks. After the debuff expired, you can go back in.
Alright, this is second Malice. This is we're spawning Iron Star on this one.
Okay, so he's calling out, Rob's calling out second Malice for Iron Star right here. So we're going to see who it's on, then I'm going to stay completely out so that I get no ticks.
Second Malice.
Okay, so I'm staying out of this until the call for, okay, now he's calling for stack. Now I'm going to go in and then pop I see these.
Dude, come on. That's the wrong way.
Okay. I was actually really slow to move out of the Iron Star here, but I was not hit.
Stack up. Stack up. He's at 85 energy now, Rob. 87.
Okay.
Come on,
So the
man.
way the Iron Star works
Get on the right side
is
of the
that
room.
before the boss reaches 100 energy, we're supposed to be running the Iron Star into him to interrupt him. Unfortunately, we're a little bit too slow, so he goes past 100 energy,
We'll see.
and then the Iron Star hits, and we're going to get one ad. One important thing to note here is that when the Iron Star hits the boss, he actually does a raid-wide interrupt, which can get you locked out for a really long time. So right when I expected the Iron Star to hit, I actually switched to casting 2 Fell Flames. And it's very important to not get Shadow or Fire locked out here.
Get ready. All right, take
Okay, so the extra ad's no problem, because I'm going to be able to cleave a little on it with Havoc.
Make sure you move out of fire though, Beacor, okay?
Cloak.
Move out of fire. Go with the Malice. Follow the Malice out of the fire. Out of the fire.
Yeah, so, you know, when you're running around like this, it's just important not to be clumped to spawn an extra Iron Star that will wipe the raid.
Do not die.
Right before that third Malice, I could have already popped Doomguard, and I actually completely forget to use Doomguard again on this kill.
Keep solid alive. We're actually not gonna.
But yeah, normally I should have used Doomguard, second Doomguard card a little while ago. Malicious Blast on me, so I'm going to run out of circle.
Bombardment. All right.
You really should be, you know, moving in and out. You know, move back in as soon as your stacks fall off. Sometimes when I'm just nuking, I'll just stand still outside and nuke. And not worry about going back in, because there's usually enough people inside to get the Malice ticks.
Watch out for the fire.
Oh yeah, so for that part, at the end, it's important to stack on the boss before the next Malice comes out, because that could wipe the raid. And then that's it.
Now that heroic warfare of black blood.
That black blood though.
That'll be better than Gaze, right? Because tomorrow, when they upgrade it, the staff is the same stats and 2
No
sockets.
shoulders still. What the fuck?
It'll be the same. It's the same as the gaze of arrogance.
That's like
Well, it's 2